Okay. As always, welcome. Thanks for covering Wake Forest football. Just wrapping up the UConn game. Certainly good to get a win, and I think I always want our players to celebrate in the moment. And then when you watch the film, we certainly did good things. The highlight of the day was our defensive effort against the run, holding them to 40 yards. I thought for the most part we covered them well. That was a team averaging 450 yards, and we held them to about 300. But in my mind, that game never should have come down to a 3-point game in the fourth quarter. I mean, that's a game that we should have won by 17 or 21 points. Our lack of production in the red zone. We had the ball in the red zone 6 times and only had 2 touchdowns. We missed a field goal. We threw a pick before the half. We just left so many points on the board. And, when you outgain a team by close to 100 yards, you have the ball 10 more minutes than them, you run 11 more plays, you make 6 more first downs, it should not be a 3-point game. It should be a 17-point game. And so, on Monday, again, we always congratulate our players and we're going to enjoy wins. But that thing almost became not a win because of things that we didn't do to close out the game. And with 6 minutes left, we're up 10 points and we allow an 88-yard drive. So the defense had a chance to put it away. And then the offense gets the ball back and goes 3 and out. They had a chance to put it away. And so, if we don't close games and we're going to put ourselves at risk, we're going to have some of these other games that we don't end up on the right end of a 1-score game. So, our first team meeting, I sat here and every player was here and every staff member. And I said, I'm going to be surprised this year if we don't have at least 8 1-score games. And our ability to, execute a 2-minute drive on offense, stop a 2-minute drive on defense is really going to determine, whether we're an 8-win team or a 4-win team. And I just kind of gave a range of wins. I don't, know if those were the exact numbers I used, and I think that's proving true. So, right now we've lost the 2 top 10 teams. We have 2 1-score losses, and we have 2 1-score wins. And if you look at our schedule, I would anticipate we'll have at least 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 1-score games down the stretch. And we've got to find ways to win them. I'm glad we found a way to win them. In my mind, that never, ever should have been a 1-score game. And we had a chance to close a team on the road. We didn't do it. And then, again, I'm glad we found a way. But it should have been a more relaxing fourth quarter than it was. Moving on to Stanford, I really, I've got to know Troy a little bit through ACC meetings. I just think guys that can win at lower levels, for the most part, figure out a way to win at higher levels. He's building a program right now. There's been games over his 2 years there that they've played at a really high level. Their win against Colorado when they were down 29. Their win at Syracuse earlier in the year. They gave TCU a heck of a battle. They've got some good football players on both sides of the football. On defense, they're older. They have 10 juniors and seniors. They've got some very dynamic defensive ends. We really like the linebacker Sinclair, the nickel right, we think's a really good player. And they're an older veteran team. On offense, they're younger, but they're talented. We're not sure what quarterback we're going to see. The older guy, Daniels, he has really, really good feet and can run the ball. The receiver, I hope I pronounced this right, A.O. Manor, he could play anywhere in the country. He's 6'2", 210 pounds. The play he made against, SMU, he's an elite receiver. And Troy's a really good offensive coach. He's the head coach, but he's also the offensive coordinator. I believe he coaches the quarterbacks. He's a very aggressive play caller. They'll go for it on 4th down. I think they've gone for it like 24, 25 times this year. And for the first time in my time here, we're traveling to California and playing our ACC rival, Stanford. So I'm sure there's a lot of bad blood and hatred that's been built up on this rivalry. But for us, to get a fourth win and to go out there and get that before the bye week is really important if we want to finish the way we want to finish. And I'm sure in their mind, this is a huge game as well. So I think they picked us for their homecoming. And I look at Stanford as a good team with a hard schedule. I think, right now in college football, there's, the way these conferences are now with so many teams, part of your season success a little bit depends on your luck of the draw with the schedule. So there's teams that are off to incredible starts and they're playing good football and, the strength of schedule. And there's other teams that, like Stanford, I mean, they've played Clemson, and you look at their defensive numbers, they've played three of the best offenses in the country between Clemson, Syracuse, and SMU. And so, sometimes your record is a function of what your schedule is. And again, I think this is a good, solid football team that it's going to be a very, very competitive game, and we're going to have to play well. And with that, I will take any questions.
Will this be your first time coaching in California?
I think so. I mean, Will told me I was 15-1 in New England. I had no idea. I didn't know I had made 16 trips to New England in my head coaching career. So.
This is new for everyone. I mean, going out to California is different. I mean, you guys have been going to Tallahassee and Clemson and all these years. Is that something that you guys kind of look forward to?
I think for some of our players, they're excited to go out there. Yeah, I think for some of them, they're very excited to go out to the West Coast and see California for the first time. And I'm just really thankful that we have a bye afterwards. I look at some of this scheduling and, I really, Greg Schiano is a friend of mine. I really respect the hell out of Greg Schiano as a football coach. And, after playing UCLA at home, they've got to go to USC and play on a Friday. I mean, that's crazy. Like, who possibly comes up with a schedule like that and says this is good for student athletes? And again, I have this week, it's a normal week. We got back, we had a noon game at UConn. We got back fairly early. We'll fly out Thursday. We have a bye week afterwards. I'm good with it. But I think you look at some of these scheduling and, whatever, we know why they're doing it. But the impact it's going to have on student athletes, their sleep, their mental health, their academics. I mean, it's almost, those discussions certainly aren't at the forefront when they discuss these things. And, we're fortunate. We take one trip out there. That's great. I'm good with it. I feel for Stanford and Cal that have to come out here probably 3 times a year. I mean, it's going to take a toll on these kids, and especially in the other sports but that's Power 4 and TV contracts, and that's the way conferences are with all the movement.
The decision to go out there a day earlier, or when was that made? And what was the
So I made that decision early in the year because another great benefit is with our schedule is you don't know when you're playing until not even, sometimes you don't know till 6 days before, usually 13 or 12 days before. And so the logistics of getting out to California, I mean, you got to plan those things in the summer, you got to get the plane early. And my concern was if we ended up having a 7:30 or an 8 o'clock West Coast kickoff time, like you have to plan for that in case it is that way, and then I would want to get out there early and adjust to the time change. If I had known 3 or 4 months ago that it was a noon game, which is 3:30 East Coast, we maybe would go out there Friday, but you just don't know. So my thought was, let's go out there Thursday so we can adjust to the time change, get rid of the jet lag, just in case it is a later game. We'll practice here Thursday, and then we'll fly out there, and then we get out there around 5 o'clock, and then, we're doing all the research with sleep experts, and, you try to get them used to West Coast time the first night. But But I think it's probably less critical with a 12:30 Pacific kickoff, West Coast time kickoff, than it would have been with a night kickoff. Does that logic, you agree with that? Or I know Tony's a West Coast guy. Does that make sense?
It's logical.
Okay. Is that the hard-hitting issue of college football that I hit this week? Do I get a pass on that or no?
Because it almost gives you an advantage. 3:30 is a pretty good time for here, and that's what it's going to be out there.
Yeah, I think, again, I mean, when you're a West Coast team playing East, you don't want the noon kickoff. And when you're an East Coast team playing West, you don't want the 8 o'clock kickoff. I think all the other ones are fine. They're all the other ones are at times that you're used to playing football games.
This fourth quarter at UConn was kind of similar to dating back to the Virginia game, but obviously you came out on top of this one. Is there something you're telling the team, like, hey, these fourth quarters, we got to figure out how to put them away?
I mean, that was that sinking feeling in my gut. When we didn't get the touchdown and we kicked the field goal, and here we go again. This thing sets up. But yeah, I mean, and we again, the Virginia game, we didn't put them away and we lost the game. In the Connecticut game, we didn't put them away. And the Louisiana game was different. Like, we never had a lead in that game, and I thought the NC State game, we did to them what Virginia did to us and what UConn almost did to us. But like we've told our players every game, like, you got to go in every game expecting it to be a 60-minute, 4-quarter, 1-score game. Now, at some point, guys, I'd appreciate it if it wouldn't be that way. I mean, the old coach is going to be in an early grave if we keep doing this. So I told them if they really love me that, we'd find a way to win one of these games by 21 points, that I can smile in the fourth quarter. But that's not the nature of our league and our schedule. I mean, even the group of 5 teams we've played this year have been good teams. I think Louisiana's like 6-1 now, and Connecticut was a good football team. They blew out Florida Atlantic. I mean, Buffalo is having a good year, and they blew them out. That's a good football team. They're very talented, and if you look at all the transfers that they had from Power 5 schools, and those guys played at those Power 5 schools. So that was a good roster, and we knew it going in. We're not sure on Capone yet. He's continues to be evaluated, and we'll see where he's at. And then who else did you ask about? Hopeful. We hope he's going to practice tomorrow. So he's been able to run the last few days and looks good and feels good. So we're cautiously optimistic that we're going to have him. So I would say, Capone is questionable, and I'd say Sidarius is probably is probable.
All of that, you talked about on Saturday, how the guys left your corners more on island in that game. In a game like this where you don't really know who's going to be playing, but both quarterbacks are probably going to be looking for confidence, how much of it is a push and pull between we can't let our corners get out there on the island too much, and how much of it is what we can't do inside?
You got to mix calls. Like, what years were you here, Cam? Okay, so you were here my first season, right? I mean, that year it was pretty easy to call defenses because we had Kevin Johnson and Bud Noel, right? And we could play lockdown, press quarters, man, and all the variety came from what movement or blitz we were running inside. And now we don't have that luxury. And again, that's on me. It's my job to recruit the players and have guys ready and all that. But this is the hand we're dealt. And so we have to change up looks. Now, I will say this. I think Jamari Glasker is becoming a really good corner. He's playing at a high level. So when the year started, I didn't know if we had one guy that could lock down. And Jamari, I think, is playing really, really good football, and I thought that was a heck of a play he had in the last play of the game to seal the win.
After the game, you and Jim Mora had your little conversation.
No, he was.
And
He,
did you? I assume now you've seen his post.
first of all, after the game, he was extremely professional. I told him how much respect I had for the job he's done there and how quickly he's turned that team from last year to this year. He could not have been any nicer, any more professional. I mean, he knows I have nothing to do with the call. And, you know, there's calls in games that sometimes go your way and sometimes don't. I mean, there's a bunch of calls in that game that I thought should have been called against us that didn't get called. And maybe if we get those calls, it never comes down to that. And, you know, if you watch the play, their kid grabbed our kid's face mask right before. So, I mean, you know, could have been a PI, yeah, but it also could have been a face mask because that face mask kind of drug Jamari to the play. You know, so if you really freeze frame that and still it, again, we'll agree to disagree on that one. But he's a competitor and he wants to win. And, you know, when you lose games like that, it hurts. And so, no, but afterwards, he was nothing but a complete professional and complimentary of us. And I, again, told him what a great job I thought he was doing, and it didn't even come up. So he was, in my interaction with him, he was first class.
Dave, when a team goes on the road, is there I don't know if it's a better focus level, but is it just a different focus level that this team's had when they come
I mean, you look at our road record right now, it's better than our home record. You know, Connor, it's one of those things every year you look back and, you know, when we first got here and we were struggling, we never went on the road. You know, and then a big emphasis to be a great road team and lock in, and then we won on the road and we didn't win at home, you know. So there's no question when you're on the road there's less distractions. You know, guys aren't worried about tickets as much, or what are you doing after the game, and, you know, is their girlfriend up there in the third row? You know, like, they're there to play football. And the other thing about it is you don't travel the whole team, and so everybody on the trip is going to play. In a home game, you know, we dress 115, 120 guys. A third of them aren't going to get in the game unless we're up or down 30 points. So, yeah, there's a part of it, but, you know, part of college football is having your home crowd and having your students involved. And, you know, my favorite wins that we've had here, for the most part, are at home. You know, so, again, they're all good wins. I don't feel, you know, like our losses at home had anything to do with being home or a lack of focus. You know, I think we're getting better on defense. You know, UConn was a team that averaged 450 yards, and, you know, at the end of the day, we stayed in our gaps. We only missed 5 tackles the whole game. Like, usually if you miss under 10, you're going to win. 5 missed tackles. I thought Evan Slocum played his best game he's ever played here as a safety. I think a healthy Branson Combs was a difference maker for us. You know, and we also did some stupid things. I mean, you know, Branson's personal foul led to 3 points. You know, DeMond's little shimmy, whatever it was, gave them the ball at midfield and led to a touchdown. I mean, we did some things to hurt ourselves in that game.
Dave, did you happen to see Tony Bennett's press conference? I know it's a different sport, basketball.
Yeah, I did.
In football, do the positives still outweigh the negative as far as?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still doing it,
Yeah.
you know, and I don't know Tony well. I know their AD well, Carla Williams, and I think the world of her. I think she's just smart, personable, gets it. And, you know, Tony's daughter went to Wake Forest, and at ACC meetings, I had a quick conversation with Tony. You know, and I would say this, I think for a lot of us who got into this, you know, this is my 36th year coaching college football. And the part of the job that I truly enjoy, being with the players, being on the practice field, the relationships, the interactions, helping them get through hard times, there's no question that's becoming a smaller percentage, right? So I think we all deal with this scale of, you know, before it was like 90% enjoyment, 10% things that you didn't enjoy doing, right? And I think with some people there becomes a tipping point of when all the stuff you don't enjoy doing outweighs the things you do enjoy doing. I think for some people that's when they decide that they've had enough. And for me, the scale is still tips there's still a lot more of it I enjoy than I don't. But I would say that scale is a lot more even than it was 5 or 10 years ago. You know, I'll just give you an example. This will be a little bit of your big picture. So, you know, we were last week just going to play our 7th game of the year. We're halfway through the season. And our players are already getting poached. I mean, their high school coaches are getting calls, you know, their agents are getting calls that, you know, are you happy? Is he thinking about going to the portal? And if he does, what will it take to get him? And, you know, when you're 30, 40, 50 years old, those things are distracting. I mean, we had a player last week that got offered $500,000 by another school, you know, and it's like, really, we have to, can't the season be sacred? You know, I wish there was somehow, and again, I get it with antitrust laws and all these different things that, you know, they're not employees, and so you can't really regulate those things. But, you know, you work all year for the season, and we're not even halfway through it, and we've got 19, 20, 21-year-old young men that are getting presented with these life-changing money opportunities. Like, how do you keep them focused on the season? No, and what happens is there's teams we play that say, hey, that guy's a good player. What year is he? Hey, does anybody know him? Does anyone on the team know him? You know, let's call his high school coach. Is he happy there? And, you know, what 20-year-old is happy every day of the week, right? If he gets the call on the wrong day that, you know, his girlfriend said something mean to him or he got a bad grade in the paper, you know, hell yeah, I'm not happy, and, you know, this is what I need. Hey, you got it. And now, and the best ones are the ones that tell you. You know, if they tell you about it, you know they're telling you because they want to stay. The ones that don't tell you, I have no idea who those are. And so it's, you know, again, it's the job, but that would be the part of the job on the scale that I don't enjoy. Because you just, fine, they have the freedom to go in the portal, they can get paid, name, image, likeness, licensing fees. Can we just not keep the season sacred? You know, that in NFL, if you do that, you get fined and lose draft picks and lose money. You can't do that in any other sport. And in college athletics, and it's two. It's college football and college basketball, because we're the two revenue producers, and that's where the money is. But, I mean, you know, you're recruiting these guys 365. And at some point, if you're going to be a good coach to them and make them better, you got to, at times, coach them hard. You know, I mean, I had a player last year, you know, that blew off a class. And at Wake Forest, you go to class. You go. Our policy on the football team is you go to class. It's mandatory, non-negotiable. And that's why our GPA is a 3.26. That's why our graduation rate's the second highest in the country. And I had a player tell me when I told him he had to go to class, he goes, well, if you're going to treat me that way, just send me to compliance now so I can go in the portal. No, if you want to go, that's not going to change here. As long as I'm the head coach, we're going to go to class. But you have to, like, we're doing this for your interest to help you get a degree that's going to last you for 40 years. So those are just, again, what did Mike Tomlin say? That he is well compensated? Okay, so I am well compensated. This is part of my job. I accept that responsibility. But, you know, I love coaching football. I love being with our players. I love developing relationships. You know, there's a whole new dynamic to this that never existed before.
Dave, why won't coaches call out programs that are doing?
Because it's not illegal. They have, you know, we play these teams that have staffs of 70 and 80 people, And so what they do is they call the kid's high school coach or they call the kid's trainer. They're not calling the kid directly and they're not calling the parents directly. So it's not illegal. By the letter of the law, they're not doing anything you can turn them in for. But the dialogue, kind of starts, kind of how it did, in 7th grade. If you liked a girl that you wouldn't tell her you liked her, you would tell your friend to tell her friend, and you kind of, connect the dots like that. There's no direct conversation back then because I was terrified, and now because it's illegal. And so it's such a messed up system, and everybody says that at every press conference, and I understand why it is, all the legality of it, but it's just unfortunate. And we've lost fewer players than most. Now we've lost some good ones, but in terms of numbers, we've been able to hang on. But you have all these goals for the season and the things you want to accomplish, and it's hard to be focused on two different things. I don't care what age you are.
You talked about the players who come to you and tell you about it, and you're confident that they're telling you because they want to stay. Do you leave open the possibility that they're telling you to try and leverage Wake Forest against, or leverage their other offer against whatever Wake Forest has for them?
I just say, guys, we still have 5 games left. Let's keep the main thing, okay? And whatever success you have this year or whatever success we have this year will only make your situation better. At the end of the day, if you want to leave Wake Forest, that's an option you have. We will do anything we can that we're allowed to and capable of to keep you here. I mean, these are good kids and they're good people and they do care about our program. But if you're 20 years old and someone's calling you and say, if you go in the portal, you're going to get $500,000. Nobody's ever offered that to me. And I think if I was 19, 20 years old, nobody would. That's why I was at Williams College Division III. Our coach would tell us all the time, the only time you're here is there is no Division IV. These guys have options and opportunities to make money that most of us never had. And so I'm certainly not going to be critical of them. Our goal is to educate them. And we've had a lot of instances that players leave and they're promised A, B, and C, and they don't even get A, let alone B and C. And that's they can't be offered a contract before they go in the portal. And then once they go in the portal, it's in the words of Tony Bennett, who I have great respect for, college athletics is just not in a healthy space right now. There's my big picture deal. Or do you have another big picture question, Tony?
No,
Okay.
you've talked last week. You said when we were talking about your defensive secondary, you actually said, "I've covered this enough with regards to what you could get out of the portal or what was available." You made it very clear that there were financial issues as to what you could get and what you couldn't get. When you bring those up, who are you looking for that message to get to? Is it the fan base that you need more money from them? Is
I'm
it
not-
the collective?
I'm not looking to bring it up. You guys ask me a question and I give you a direct answer. So the only time this has come up in a press conference is when you guys ask me, why are we in this position? Why did we lose people? Why didn't we sign other guys? Okay, I'm giving a direct answer. Okay, I'm not trying to, get our donor base mad or fan base mad. If you didn't ask me about it, I wouldn't say. But when you ask me a direct question, I think I owe you an honest answer. And so I don't like talking about it. I'd prefer that you don't ask me about it. But what do you want me to say? You're asking me these questions, and what am I supposed to give as an answer? That is the reason. It's very simple. I don't like talking about it. I don't like thinking about it, right? It tips the scale the other way. So, but I mean, at the end of press conferences, I'd prefer you guys don't ask me that anymore so our fan base doesn't get mad for me bringing it up. All right, thank you.